All right, welcome back. You're still watching Business AM right here on Metropole TV with yours truly, Nina Shaban. Now on set, as I had promised earlier, to just get an insight in on the agricultural sector and also the state of the nation. We have Dr. John Mutunga, who's the Member of Parliament from Tigania West, and he's also the former CEO of the Kenya National Farmers Federation. On top of that, he is a member of the Committee on Agricultural of the National Assembly and Budget Appropriation. A very good morning to you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for gracing us with your presence this morning. I'd like us to just get down to business. In a jiffy, maybe you can just paint for us a picture of the agricultural sector in Kenya and where it stands, especially the fact that agriculture is an economy driver contributing 20% to the GDP.
Yes. Okay, the Kenyan agriculture has evolved over time from, let's say, post-colonial agriculture is different from the colonial agriculture. Colonial agriculture was land scale, a lot more organized, and the productivity was a lot higher than it is right now. So when we, as Kenyans, were released to do agriculture, we first of all formed cooperatives, bought land from the white people, and started subdividing that land for our children. We adopted the land tenure system that basically talks about individual ownership of land, and then inheritance is a major issue, inheritance of land. That has led to subdivision of the potential land into very small uneconomical units. And then the other thing we have not probably done as a country is organize our agriculture in a way that we can zone out areas and say this is an area where you can do potato production and so on. There was an initial effort of identifying the agroecological zones and then basically defining what can be done in those zones.
All right, sir.
But that has not been seriously and strictly followed because other issues come in, other land users come in. We have encroached on agricultural land significantly. We have allowed urbanization and also, other users like industrial, construction of industrial units in agricultural land and so on and so forth. So what we are doing, apart from having 16% of the country being arable meaning that you can plant crops and they grow without irrigation, we have used the arable land for other purposes. We have also subdivided land into small units which are not economical. So our agricultural production is very expensive. Again, the great majority of Kenyans are held up in agriculture, which is not performing. And since it is not performing, then we find ourselves in situations of food insecurity, find ourselves in situations of lack of sufficient amount of,
All right. Just to take it step by step, you have mentioned that the land is becoming
smaller and smaller.
Smaller and smaller.
Yes.
Now, that definitely hampers productivity.
Correct.
What else hampers productivity apart from the land becoming smaller?
It is the approach to agriculture itself. What agricultural production system do we use? Are we saying that this is an area that is suitable for production of a specific crop and then we make sure everybody does it, or we allow people to make choices? So our agricultural production is democratic. You decide to do what you want. So on a piece of land that's probably 1 acre or 2 acres or less, you find somebody doing 20, 25 enterprises. You have a few goats there, a few chicken, almost everything, trying out many things. So that's the model of subsistence, which is very counterproductive. It is extremely non-remunerative, doesn't give you profit. What ideally people should do is identify what can do best in what area and encourage everybody in that particular zone to produce that. You realize that at this point in time, we are not able to say how much of the raw materials we have for what industry. We don't know how many tons of potatoes we produce where. We don't know how many tons of, apart from probably maize, we estimate by the number of people. So the
statistics say that there's lack of organization.
I think agriculture is not organized. Honestly speaking, just farmers try what they want and we survive somehow.
Okay. Now, before we get to what you think would be a solution to all these different obstacles that you've mentioned in the sector, the average age of a farmer is between 59 and 60 years.
60 years, yes.
So what does this mean for the agricultural sector?
It means the Kenyan farmers have refused to release their land to the young people. And why? Because they feel like the younger people will not practice agriculture, and which is correct.
It's true.
The younger people are not interested in drudgery, in very, very punitive, laborious agriculture, which is not highly remunerative. We should have agriculture that is giving people quicker money. Younger people are interested in quick fixing. They want money, they don't want to do a lot of laboring. If we did zone our land and then we mechanized our agriculture, and then have a model that grows the land sizes, which makes it cheaper for us to produce, then younger people would be interested, because mechanized agriculture is very interesting. Nobody would not agree to driving a tractor to plow, to harrow, to plant, to spray, they would like to do that. But now, we use very rudimentary tools to do our agriculture, so it is very labor intensive. And in some cases, when we even allow younger people to produce, for instance, people can engage in production of tomatoes, and then what happens is that at the point of sale, almost everybody around there has produced tomatoes, the prices go down, and then they are not able to sell. So we need to organize our production and marketing system in a structured way, and then we do what is called supplies management. Supplies management has to do with looking at the entire chain and how the value chain actors operate to make sure that the chain is effective in delivering the function.
Okay, and you have mentioned that I'd like us to close down on matters the youth.
Yes.
You mentioned that young people will like quick money, and they like seeing
not
their
delivering
profits.
a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So from where you sit, what exactly are you doing to make sure that you encourage a young person to get into farming?
If you want to have impact at national level, it has to be policy-based. So we are pushing for policies that will cause the relevant changes. Okay. Policies that will lead to aggregation of land. Policies will lead to withdrawal of, securing agricultural land. If you go to some economies like Canada, US, and those others which have been very successful, they have different land user systems. They have defined their land in terms of the user. You cannot buy agricultural land and put a factory or put a housing unit. You can only buy agricultural land and do agriculture. So agricultural land should have its own. It should be ring fenced, such that if you buy agricultural land, you can only use it for agriculture. But you see people in Kiambu and other areas have bought agricultural land and they are living there, when they could have been living along the escarpment, which is, they would even do better housing along the escarpment. So we need to change the policies, and the policies need to be changed to adapt to large-scale farming, to transform our land sizes into bigger. In that case, we shall have fewer farmers and bigger land sizes, right? Fewer farmers and reducing the size of land. It's a very destructive model, and it will not help us. That's why we cannot consider ourselves to be full secure in the next many years.
And we are just about
despite the big four. And I would like to say that.
We are going to touch on that in just a bit, once we are done with matters productivity when it comes to agriculture. Now, there's been an over-reliance of rain in agriculture. Yes. Would you say that the agricultural sector in Kenya has failed when it comes to irrigation?
I think the first thing is that we have under-invested in agriculture, despite being the main economic driver of this economy. If the agricultural GDP doesn't grow, the national GDP doesn't grow. If the agricultural GDP performs, then the national economy does perform. On a good year, if you listen to presentations from Treasury, they talk about good year and a bad year. And good year is when you have had enough rain and people have been able to produce their own food. Why? Because the greater majority of the people are old up in agriculture, and they are eaters of the food. So if 70% of the population is in agriculture and they grow their own food and they have been able to supply their own food needs, then the year is good. But if they have not been able to do that because the rains were not enough, then we have to look for food from elsewhere. So we have to reallocate resources from other users into buying food. And that is why now we say that the economy has not grown on such a
Would you say that agriculture has not been given priority?
If I look at last year's, I'm in Budget and Appropriation Committee, I can tell you for sure last year, I'm talking of 2017-2018 financial year, agriculture was number 11 in terms of priority, in terms of funding.
The economy driver was number 11.
Yet, we have signed the Maputo Protocol in 2005, I think. 2003, we signed the Maputo Protocol, which presupposed that by 2008, we should have been giving agriculture 10% of our national budget. Other countries have done it. Ethiopia have done around 8% and very, very fast. Rwanda have done it, a few other countries have done it. Even Tanzania is doing it, and they are transforming lives through agriculture. We refuse to do that as a nation, and as a matter of choice, it's a matter of policy. Even when we devolved and sent money to the counties, the county governments have decided not to prioritize agriculture. Why? Because why looking for revenue? So they look at other uses of the money instead of investing in agriculture. Or when we invest in agriculture, they don't look at the entire value chain. They look at that two issues. We've also been edged considerably on production instead of looking at the entire value chain. In other words, producing raw materials for an industry somewhere, which will even create employment.
All right. Yeah, I'd like to just allow us to take a short break, and we shall be back with Mheshimiwa just to expound more on agriculture and maybe pay attention on the regulations that are yet to be seen, and also take a look at the state of the economy as we wait for the State of the Nation address. That will be done by our president tomorrow. Let's take a quick break, and we shall be back with more. Welcome back. You're still watching Business AM on Metropole TV. I'm still seated with Dr. John Mutunga, who's the Member of Parliament of Tigania West, a member of the Committee on Agriculture and the National Assembly, and a budget and the budget appropriation. Now, we left off talking about farming. We are yet to get into the state of the economy. Okay. Very quickly, just to wrap it up, how will Kenya, what is the best mode for Kenya to better the agricultural sector?
The best model is basically to choose enterprise per region, and then popularize this among the people who are in those regions. In other words, we zone the regions based on what is called competitive advantage or comparative advantage. In other words, what can do best in which region. That was initially done because we zoned off the tea zones, we have coffee zones, we have, dairy is more or less cutting across because you can do dairy anywhere as long as you control the environment. You can do zero grazing and you'll be able to be successful dairy farmer wherever. But now we have allowed land user to be confused. We need to have land use system that basically specifies what can do best in which area, and then we have strict adherence to husbandry practices or the good cropping or livestock management system. That's the only way we can do agriculture better. Other countries are doing it. A country called Vietnam, which has emerged from a long period of war, is doing very well in agriculture right now. What they have done is, because they were largely smallholder, just like Kenya, they have allowed their farmers to come together. If it's a rice growing area, they tell the farmers, move out of the land, operate on this land, all of you, then settle at the corner of the land, put up a warehouse, and then do rice in this specific way. If it is potato, the same. Then they are able to quantify how much rice they can produce, how many tons of potatoes they can produce, how many tons of what they can produce. If you came to Kenya and you wanted to invest in processing, especially in view of manufacturing, and I think the easiest way to achieve the manufacturing arm of the Big Four, if I may mention that, is through transformation of agricultural products, what we call value addition. We need, for any investor to come to Kenya and invest, they need to know how much of the raw materials they can get and where.
Okay.
That we can't tell.
Okay, Mheshimiwa, now that you've touched on Vietnam, one thing that I've gathered is the farmers and the boards and the people at the top clearly seem to be having some sort of organization. Would you say that we lack that in Kenya?
We do not have serious organization. What happened is that the agricultural cooperatives more or less collapsed in this country. Why? Because of the cheating that there was. Farmers were cheated out their money, and then they decided not to do the cooperatives anymore. If you go into some areas and tell farmers we want to form a cooperative, they don't even attend meetings anymore. So we have to come up with new names and the new models that will entice the farmers to join and therefore stick to cooperative, because smallholders can only operate together.
As a member of the Agricultural Committee in the National Assembly, is that is that exactly what you're doing?
There is a lot of effort. There is an act called the Crop Act, which was ascended to in 2013, which presupposes that we should first of all register farmers, get to know who are our farmers and what is it that they are producing. Then secondly, I think the next thing is within the regulations of the Act itself, we need to come up, and the regulations are being done right now. I will explain why. Within the regulations, we need to come up with now, when the registration of farmers has got to go with the zoning of the areas, and then you can be able to quantify what can be produced optimally. What is the maximum that you can get from such an area, and therefore we shall therefore be able to give prescriptions of how the farmers can do the husbandry. This is how you can do potatoes here, and this is now what you are likely to get. Anybody falling short of that, then you will not be producing optimally. Then we stop farmers from producing everything, everywhere, every time. That way we shall be able to know how much of the raw materials we have, and we can even do specific sensitization in terms of investment promotion, and saying that if you go to Bomet, you will get a certain variety of potato doing very well. You can put up an industry there instead of transporting potatoes from there to Nairobi to come and process here. So we will distribute industries across the country based on the raw material production, and therefore the possibilities that you can even get cheap labor from those areas. We haven't done that. Coffee was one of the models that was very well structured. We used to produce around 140 metric tons, 1,000 metric tons of coffee we were selling in the world market. And our coffee is what is called, our coffee is a specialty coffee. It is used actually for blending other coffee. Now we are doing around 41,000 metric tons. So from 140 to 41, we have lost our 100,000 metric tons of coffee. Why? Because of the interferences of the chain. People got into the chain and benefited more than the farmers, and the farmer gave up. You can see farmers would uproot coffee and then they plant maize and beans. So we need to go back to that and say, this zone, we can do coffee and do it well. Then we encourage the farmers by organizing the marketing of their product and ensuring that they have value for investment. That is the only way we can encourage agricultural production and productivity.
And with that said, regulations, there's the way the government has regulated the banking system.
Yeah.
That same approach it's been rumored and it's been offered to the agricultural sector.
Yes.
Not many are in agreement.
Yes.
So could you just highlight it for us, and what exactly is the government set to do when when they say they want to regulate agriculture?
What happens is that first of all, there is a Principal Act. The Principal Act is a Crops Act, and there is another one which is called AFA Act, Agriculture and Food Authority Act. Okay. Agriculture and Food Authority was created to merge the formerly 8 parastatals within the agricultural sector, which the Coffee Board, Steam Board, Paredram, and so on, to put them into one umbrella, which is AFA, Agriculture and Food Authority. That Food Authority is the one now which is implementing part of the Agricultural Act. Agricultural Act presupposes that we need to regulate agriculture and do agriculture in a specific way. Principal acts are implemented through regulations. So the regulations that are being done now, which have of course taken a bit of time to do, are the ones that are supposed to implement the act itself. And we have seen a few of them coming out. Unfortunately, we have not been engaged as the Agricultural Committee, but we have clearly told the Minister that we need to be engaged. We need to give our comments on the regulations. It is possible to sneak out the regulations with the Ministry, passing them through the Cabinet, and then, of course, after due engagement with the Attorney General, and then you can have the regulations gazetted. But it will be wrong if they are not looked into by the various committees of the House, because they affect the welfare of the people, and we have seen some of them. For instance, recently you heard about the dairy, where they were trying to regulate, to say that you cannot sell milk unless it is pasteurized, and that would have been very punitive. Every farmer will have to pasteurize their milk before it is sold. The other thing is also what we have seen in terms of crop registration of farmers, registration of agents. Agents who are going to operate within the agricultural sector, and the punitive, levies, punitive penalties. Like if you are not registered, you are liable to a fine of 5 million or 3 million shillings or 3 years imprisonment on both.
It's extreme.
Some of things are, those are too extreme, they are too punitive. So as a member of parliament and as a representative of the people and as a person who knows how agriculture in this country could be done, I think those regulations need to be looked into. So we have called upon the ministry to basically engage us through public participation. I don't think they have been exposed to public participation, which is a requirement by constitution.
Yes, it
that
is.
Everything must be taken to the people and they must synthesize this, see the implications, and then they give their view on what could be done.
Right.
So that is exactly what we are saying, that it has not been done, it should be done before they can be, implemented.
Okay, so so what you're saying is that the farmers actually have a right to be scared.
Oh, they do have a right to be scared because agriculture is overtaxed. I think the farmers are not beneficiaries in this country. The ones who benefit are middlemen or the commission agents. And they benefit because farmers are not organized. If the farmers are organized into cooperatives or producer business group or whatever they may want to call it, then they would contain a lot of the middlemen. We are not saying middlemen are bad. Middlemen should be engaged in a structured way so they don't deal directly with the individual farmers. If they deal with an organized system, they won't be able to cut it, we won't be able to reduce the excesses. What happens is that the harvesting time, of course, for some of these products like cereals and so on, and then they know that farmers have gone through a production process which is very punitive, and therefore they will need to take their produce to the market. So when all the farmers meet in the market, they drive the prices down so much so that they sell below producer price. And then the middleman take this produce, keep it for about 2 or so months and sell it back to the farmers because they are the consumers of the produce at a much higher, 3 times the price. So what we are saying is that we need to organize these products. We have a systematic way. Instead of having a farmer produce and sell, let the farmer produce and take it to a warehouse. There's a bill which is in the house, a warehouse receipting system, which presupposes that every produce must.
But do the farmers know this? Do they have enough education?
Farmers may know, but not sufficiently. And I believe it is not difficult to pass this knowledge. It does not require a lot. Right. In any case, there's a lot of effort with the counties now to educate the farmers. In a way, what we have not come up with is a mode of agricultural extension that is going to be correct for the time, because we're under the devolution, and with so much, money going to, payment of personal emoluments. I think there's need for us to be concerned about how many people we should have working. It's possible to organize our agriculture in a way that the messaging and the technical and advisory system can be, packaged in a way it can reach the farmers better. And
it's as visible as possible.
Yeah.
All right, now I'd like us to cross over to Martha's State of the Nation address that we shall be all seated. I think the whole country is waiting to hear tomorrow what the president is going to tell us. What do you expect? As a whole, generally, not even from
a personal level.
Personal level. Let's start with that.
Let's start with personal level. I will hope that the president will take into serious. He will talk about corruption reduction, the fight against corruption. We expect that he will deal with that to a certain large extent. That he will be a lot more, precise in tackling corruption in this country because it's really serious. The other issue that we believe the president will deal with is the bringing the people together, not having hiccups or having a united nation where people feel happy and comfortable to work in Kenya through the initiatives that have been brought about. We also expect the president to talk about the economy. The Kenyan economy at the moment is not performing very well. We need to look at the indicators. They are clearly showing that there is a problem. And most of our economic indicators are weather-based. The more we experience the dryness, the more our economy is likely to be affected. And that being the issue, then I hope the president will consider pushing and putting a lot of weight on investment in agriculture, which I think is the way to go.
Okay, investment in agriculture. Do you presume that he'll put some priority on that, considering financial year 2017-2018, you were number 11?
Yes, when you look at the budget policy statement, which has already passed through the House, that has not been addressed as yet. But looking at the historical experiences that we've had as a country, Once so often we are out there and buying food for the country. It would be better if we were organized to produce this food ourselves, and then better the Kenyan in terms of...
And there is a possibility for us to produce
clear
our own
possibility we can produce our own food, sufficient amounts of food for this country without buying food. We don't need to buy food because we have a large population still committed to food production, and therefore they do not. What we need is to organize our systems and invest in agriculture. We have really failed as a country when it comes to investing in agriculture. And you realize that this is not only reflected at the national level, it is also a lot more reflected at the county level, where the county governments have decided not to put a lot of money into agriculture. We just have had a devolution conference happening in Kirinyaga, and when you listen to the kind of ideas that they are floating, only a few governors have gotten it. I will tell you with a lot of confidence that Professor Kiboza Kimwana has gotten it. He knows what to do. What he's doing is intensifying production, for instance, of these fruits, and then locating this production with a factory to process. And that's the way we need to go. This country, you'll have investors in agricultural production, in agricultural processing, who are importing raw materials. And that is the worst we can do as a country, because what you're doing is exporting jobs when you have so many people who need to be employed. We need to organize our production system such that the agricultural products can be fed into the industry. And the industry, the factory now, the manufacturing unit, will be able to create jobs. We'll create jobs at the point of identifying what it is that is good to the factory. There is cleaning, grading, sorting, packaging, transportation, all those things. And when you go there, there is also transformation, value addition in other ones. And then there is the promotion of the product. There is the production of the packaging material. There's so much we can do within a single, commodity. So if we did that for several commodities, it would really help us a lot. So
you're not very comfortable with what the county governments are doing when it comes to
actually we are not, because the priorities are not right.
Who's checking them?
I don't know whether they can check themselves, because they have a council of governors, which seems to be the umbrella, body that looks at what they do. We haven't seen Senate just a few days ago. We have seen Senate having some calling in some governors to answer to some of the things that they are doing, some of the decisions that they are making. If the Senate became very aggressive into questioning, seriously questioning what the county governments are doing.
Because anyway, that is their responsibility.
That's the oversight role that they have. By law, that's the oversight role, that's their role. I think we would have a few of them. And then we need a clearing house on what to invest in, because our county governments have correctly grouped themselves into economic blocks. What they discuss in these economic blocks is not informed by anything. It's just having investment conferences and then calling people and telling them to invest. One thing we need to ask ourselves is, when you tell somebody come and invest here, what are you telling them? A serious investor will look at several things. First of all, how costly is it for me to put up a plant? Secondly, what is the cost of running this plant in terms of labor and so on? What are the taxes? Number three, where is the raw material? Which raw material am I going to process? Because I cannot put a processor here which I will close for 5 months. They would like to put a processor which will run for 24 hours if need be, for every year, for so many years without stopping. Those are the kind of things that they look at. Giving them tax holidays and giving them land to put plants does not help, because what that will end up doing is they will put the factories here, all right, and then consider the Kenyan community, poor as we are, as a consumer community, and therefore they will buy the raw materials from outside. We have some sectors which have died in this country, and I want to specifically single out the oilseed subsector. The oilseed subsector is dead. We don't produce we don't produce sunflower, we don't produce simsim, we don't produce all these. And what that does is that it affects the economy in another way. We use the seed cakes, the cotton seed cake, the sunflower seed cake, the simsim seed cake, all these seed cake to produce livestock feed. So if we don't produce these seeds, then we don't have the cake. Then we have to import the cake because we have livestock, we have dairy. So those are the parallels that we don't draw correctly, and the linkages that we don't do, and then we end up really making it very expensive for even a Kenyan farmer, dairy farmer, to produce milk as 20 shillings per kilo. And
with that said, because we've really highlighted on matters agriculture, if there are those complaints when it comes to agriculture, and you've mentioned your worries as which are in the county governments,
Yeah.
yes, how far would you say is the president? How far is it from achieving his Big Four agenda?
When I look at the Big Four agenda, if correctly anchored onto agriculture, we would achieve the four within a record time through agriculture. And I will say it this way, with a lot of confidence. If we organize our agricultural production system, then mechanized, of course, make the farm sizes large, which we can do through collective approach to production. Then we can produce more, which means we can increase on, because we will impose better land husbandry practices. If it is land preparation on a land scale to be done well, planting will be done in time and well, crop protection will be done well, weeding and so on, all the other operations will be done well. So we'll increase the productivity of the land. Then we shall increase the food produced all over the country.
And that's food
in that
security?
Case, food security, we
It's
are
on a tick.
securing.
All right.
Secondly, we will have identified which areas can produce what. We shall therefore maximize on the potential of the land, and therefore even food nutrition security will be sorted out, because we'll have all types of food produced. Then we need to manage our distribution system. The government had invested in National Cereals and Produce Board. The National Cereals and Produce Board, which basically even handles what we are calling the National Food Reserve. I mean, instead of what you used to have initially, we can store the food in amounts that are commensurate to probably solving the problem in case of need. Now, once we have been able to organize production and productivity and challenge our land to produce more, then we'll be able to also increase the possibility of having raw materials for our industries. Then we will package our investment promotion briefs. When we go out there to say, please invest in Kenya, the Kenyan investor will be singing the music of, we have so much arrowroots in such a place, we have so much cassava in such a place, we have so much mangoes in such a place. Please come and invest, put up a factory to process this. And then processors will come in.
Manufacturing.
And the manufacturing will be sorted out. So we have already taken care of two.
Food security.
Food security
and
and manufacturing.
Yes.
The third one is health. Our health issues are a lot more nutritional. If we sorted out our nutritional health issues, we'll have been 50% done. The other 50% basically will come through the NHIFs and of course the universal health facility that we are trying to do. So then people will have money in their pockets because there will be revenue. Money will be circulating. We don't need to build houses for people. They will build their own houses. They will have money. But when you have to build their houses. So if we sort out agriculture, we have sorted out everything.
We've sorted out everything. I
so
see how you've done.
Invest in agriculture, then we'll stay forever trying to do things that do not work.
Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa. But I have one last question. When it comes to drought, every year, the common mwananchi pays taxes just to take care of such matters, to take care of hunger in Turkana, to take care of health, as you said. As a committee on the agricultural in the National Assembly, why is it that Kenya is never prepared? And every year, this is not the first time that we're facing drought.
Correct. We should have learned from the experiences over time. That's what you're saying, and it's very correct. As a committee, we are actually going out next week from Monday to Thursday. We are going out all over Kenya. Some team is going to Kisumu and Nakuru, another team is going to North Rift, another team is going elsewhere to assess. The country was very organized in terms of food distribution, especially with cereals, under the NCPB. NCPB put up stores where in the places of plenty and in places of lean, nothing, where we don't produce. There are stores in Garissa, there are stores all over the country. These were grain management stores. So the system was supposed to really manage. When we have plenty of food produced in North Rift, it should be quickly taken, dried to a level where it can be kept for long, and then transported to those other areas. Then people will get food from nearby. So we wait until people die. And that is it's a little bit careless. In the 21st century, we should not be having people dying.
Yes.
We should be able to manage our food distribution system. So really, we cannot. And now we even moved from strategic grain reserving to strategic food reserves, where we have expanded the scope. We even keep milk, we keep other products. So even nutrition should not be an issue. So I think there are laxities, there are lapses within the system, the inefficiencies, and those are the ones that take the toll, and we wait until people die and then we rush. Sometimes you wonder whether it's not a created crisis for purposes of being able to do things in a hurry, and then you don't do the right thing.
And that's a discussion we'll be having soon.
Another day. Thank you so much.
Another day.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. That is Dr. John Mutunga, who's the Member of Parliament of Tigania West, and who's also a specialist in the agricultural sector, being a member of the Committee on Agriculture in the National Assembly and Budget, and he's also a member of the Budget Appropriation. He's the former CEO of the Kenya National Farmers Federation. You have a lot on your curriculum vitae, sir. I'd like to say thank you so much for keeping us company. That was it for Business AM. My name is Nina Shaban, standing in for Simba Elijah. Have a lovely day, and we'll be seeing you soon with more news on matters business across the day in our subsequent bulletins.